So what is a water level anyway? Well, it's a versatile leveling tool, mostly for leveling things that are far away, like a long distance or something very long, up to 50 feet with mine because I have 50 feet of hose, but you could go up to 100 feet, 200 feet, whatever length of hose you have will work. You can level that far away. It's much the same as, say, a laser level or a transit, but you don't have to be in a line of sight and you don't have to worry about blocking a laser or whatever. You can go around corners with it and you don't even have to see the other end of it. It will always show you level because the water in the hose, from the container through the hose to the stick and then up the stick, will always be at the same level because water always finds its own level. The container doesn't necessarily have to be at the same level as you're trying to make this. I mean, you don't have to have the container and the stick at zero. If you put the container anywhere at all and you move the stick and the liquid comes up to 11 inches on your first point and you want to level everything to that same point, then just go around the rest of your points, putting them all at 11, and they'll all be at the same level. So this is all the stuff I'm going to use to make the water level. So I have about 55 feet of clear vinyl hose. It's about 3/16 inside diameter. I have a measuring stick, which is 51 inches long, and it's about 1 inch by 1 inch square. I have some tie wraps that I'm going to use to tie the hose onto the measuring stick. And I have a cap that I can put on the end of the hose when it's not being used. And then I have this fitting and a clamp, and the fitting is what goes into the bottom of the container, and I made it so it could be sealed up with some just plain washers and a piece of rubber that I cut into a circle and punched a hole in. So that's going to go into the container, which is just an old screw container, and it's a square container, so it has a nice flat side, so this should seal up pretty well. Now the measuring stick is marked every inch, and it's about 51 inches long, and I've started the measurements up 2 inches from the end. And you'll see it goes up from 0 from that mark all the way up to the top, and I made it 51 inches so that I could have 4 feet of measurement and still have a little bit past the end. So whenever the hose runs up here, it's going to go past, and I'll have up to 4 feet of measurement. And the reason why I started this up 2 inches was because there's going to be precisely 2 inches of liquid if you were to place the container on the flat, flush with the bottom of that. There should be exactly 2 inches of liquid in this, bringing it right to the 0 mark. So whenever the hose is connected to the container and then it runs up the stick, when it's on the same level, the liquid should be at 0. And you also need it to start up a little bit anyway, just because of the way the hose is going to sit at the bottom. You want this to be able to sit flat. You don't want to have the hose sticking off the bottom like that. So it needs a little bit of room for the hose to bend before it goes up the stick. So then here in the middle, I have markings on the one side, goes from 0 right up to 48. Then on the other side, at 24 inches, I have a 0, and then it goes up by the inches and down by the inches. So the reason for that is if you put the container, if you put the container from the bottom to the ground exactly 24 inches, then the liquid in the hose should be right at 0. So that way, if you raise the stick, the liquid would go down, and if you lowered the stick, the liquid would go up, meaning that anything above this is low, so this is minus inches. Anything below this is above, so plus inches. So that just allows you to go up and down 24 inches either way. So on this side, this scale is really only good for going down, because the lower you go with the stick, so say if this was your highest point and your stick is going down, then that means the liquid is going to rise. So all these numbers above 0 is less height. It's lower than where the bottle is. So another thing you have to do to make it work right is the container needs a vent. So it has to have a hole in it so the liquid can move freely and doesn't create like an airlock. So same thing I was saying about the cap. If you cap the end of the hose, then the liquid won't move in it. So if the stick was to upset with the end capped, the liquid just would not move. Doesn't matter if you go higher or lower, the liquid doesn't move. So I'm going to have to drill a hole in the cap of the container so everything works right. There. So that is all you need for this end, is just a container with the fitting and an air hole. And I'll just go ahead and put the hose right on here. I had these nice little pinch clamps here. Work really good for small hose like this. There. So there, as you can see, the hose is attached to the measuring stick. And then, like I was saying, whenever it goes flat, the hose can bend like this. So now it's time to fill it. So what I'm going to use for a liquid instead of water is orange antifreeze. This is Dexcool. The reason why I'm using orange is so it shows up easy, it's nice and visible, and it won't freeze. So at first, I'd done this before. I had plumbing antifreeze in it, but it made the fitting in the container rust a little bit because I think it doesn't have any anti-corrosion additives in it. So antifreeze for a vehicle does, so that's why I'm going to use that. Of course, you want to watch the level in there so it doesn't go below. There. So it's full. We're going to see how close I am on calibration, you could call it. And what I mean by that is I need exactly, since the whole system's filled, I need exactly 2 inches of liquid in the container and the hose at the same time. So you would adjust this by either adding or subtracting liquid out of the container. But by the looks of it, it's pretty close. So this liquid in the hose is going to keep dropping until it's at the level of the container. So it looks like I have to add just a little bit. It's slowly starting to rise in the hose. If it would stay there, it'd be good. There. So that's the idea. As you can see, the container and the stick are at the same level, and the liquid is at 0. So that means that these 2 points are level. Looks like it's still a little bit below the line now that it's settled a bit. So I think I'll add just a little bit. And the thing is with this, you can always check its accuracy just by putting the stick and the container side by side, just to see if it still zeroes out. So after I'd used it for a while, I ended up adding this little kickstand for it. And it's a lot handier when you're out in the middle of an area where there's no place to lean it up. And it's handy too if you want to check the height of something. Say if you're raking gravel or something and you're leveling an area, you can kind of set it in one spot and just keep working and come back and look at it after it's settled and it leveled itself and check where you're at. So it's a pretty handy addition.